I want my cocaine on that plane right now. You understand me?
Longs to find out why my man was killed yesterday. Who are you?
Welcome to this latest edition of the Real Deal Podcast as I continue to look at seasons 1 through 3 of the epic series Snowfall. This is, of course, episode 909 of the Real Deal Podcast. We have, of course, season 16 premiere coming up. Either Tuesday or Wednesday. I haven't decided yet, but either Tuesday or Wednesday will be the season 16 premiere where we'll do all the NFL stuff and what have you of the Real Deal Podcast. So, season 2, episode 3 of Snowfall. The name title of this episode is called Prometheus Rising. This is, of course, based off a book written by Robert N. Wilson about how the human mind behaves. And, of course, that was prevalent in this particular episode amongst our characters. Themes, the thinker and the prover. We will flush that out over the course of this podcast in best scenes. But as always, we begin with the deep dive. And I was thinking about when would be the perfect time to deep dive the character Leon, because we know how prominent of a figure that he was throughout the course of this entire series. This episode jumped out because there's a shift that Leon has. The scene was not like there were a lot of great scenes in this. It was a great episode overall, all around, and there were a lot of big scenes, a lot of important scenes. But this shift could easily get missed. And I probably missed it the first couple times I've seen this particular season and this episode in general. Leon, of course, I think in this episode clearly becomes Franklin's right hand and his number 2. Up to this point, Leon, he's seen as the muscle. He's seen, seen as the tough guy. Who's Franklin's best friend, one of Franklin's best friends. We see him with Wanda, we see him with Wanda this season, and we kind of see, we know that he's in the game, and he had a moment last season when after he got shot by Ray, where he's trying to give Franklin some advice on how to come back on him, and it's just not about revenge, it's about respect. So he had a minor moment from that standpoint. But to me, there's a scene in this episode where he, number one, corrects himself for going in the car with Kevin and Jerome and foolishly going to the Mexican territory where they had intentions of just shooting people. They had no business there. We'll talk about that later in the episode. So he corrects himself from that standpoint, tells Franklin, next time, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have been in the car. Next time I'll wait for you. And to me, that is a shift in maturity for Leon in terms of maturity. Remember, late last season, you had Claudia calling him out, basically being a clown along with Kevin, and he calls her a busted ass bitch. So there was a lot of immaturity up to this point. And again, following this, and we'll see in season 3, and there was some. Leon has moments where it's like, Leon, what the fuck are you doing? And of course, over the course of this series, but I thought that in this episode that he took a step and really entrenched himself into being that clear-cut number 2 for Franklin. Remember, during this episode, when Franklin is not around, all hell just breaks loose. I mean, just emotions, just horrible decision-making, lack of no leadership. So this was very important for Franklin's crew. And Leon will, again, we'll see how valuable Leon is throughout the course of this entire series. Especially, in seasons 3 and 3 through 5, season 3 and 4 in particular. But this episode, again, that particular scene with him and Franklin, as towards the latter part of the episode, was to me a turning point, a coming of age for Leon, and very important move, a very important scene and a very important moment for the Franklin Saint organization that is still trying to find its way. Let's be honest. It's still, you still have some weak links. You still have some, guys, you still have, Jerome's kind of all over the place. You still have some pieces, everybody still hasn't found their role. It's kind of like a team that's still trying to develop chemistry. Like, they know that they trust, still trying to develop that chemistry and find their way in this drug world, which has very little room for error. Best scenes, there were a number of them in this episode. It was just like I said, this was a great episode. Let's go with Teddy, Matt, Danilo, Diego. So Danilo and Diego arrived. Prior to Danilo and Diego arriving, we know that Teddy nearly got him and Matt killed. Teddy is basically mouthing off to, some of the underlings of Danilo and Diego. He's shitting on the country. He's smug. He has, at this point, I don't know if he realizes he just has no leverage at this point. Like, he really has, he really almost talked the bullet into his head. And then, he gets knocked. One of the lieutenants of Danilo and Diego just, call him out, saying, we basically only need one of you to be alive, to be honest with you. And, hits Teddy with the butt of the gun, busts Teddy's eye. Danilo and Diego arrive. They, he calls them amateurs, and they say, hey, who's the amateur here? Like, you got your shit taken, you got your drugs taken, you couldn't even, you're late for your drop and what have you. Like, what are you talking about? Like, we're the amateurs. So they make demands on what they want in order for this deal to go through. And, a bunch of the stuff is just easy. It's just tedious, talking about condoms and just a bunch of tedious, maniacal shit until it doesn't get real serious until they bring up visas. And that's where Teddy kind of draws the line and says, hey, I can't give you visas. Those are official government documents. And they say, well, aren't you the government? Which was a fair point. And then Matt jumps in and says, hey, look. And Matt, up until this point, had kind of been going somewhat back and forth, trying to smooth things out. And because they're very close to getting killed. Like Teddy, like I said, Teddy almost talked them into the grave. Matt smooths things out. Matt, you remember, was in Vietnam. He's dealt with some negotiations in terms of from that standpoint. So he in essence saves their lives, and says, hey, yeah, we can get you, we'll get you the visas, no problem. And they, they take to Matt and like Matt. But again, this won't be the first time where Teddy is smug and Teddy is, has a sense of this entitlement that will run throughout the course of the entire series. But he really in this scene almost got them killed with some of the stuff that he was saying about not only about the Diego, but about the countries, Mexican country in general, about these Colombians in their country and what have you. So Matt saves the day from that standpoint. We go to Louis, Jerome, Leon, Kevin, and Wanda. This is the scene where Kevin comes in, having just found out that his cousin and Victor, D-Ray and Victor, have been killed. He claims that they, through a phone call, he didn't see it, that they've been castrated. This sends Jerome into just like a frenzy. Everybody goes into, mind you, Franklin's not around. So everybody goes into a panic. Everybody is up in arms. Everybody, a bunch of yelling. You have, Jerome yelling at Louis, chastising her for spending the night at Claudia. She had spent the night at Claudia. She's sleeping with Claudia and what have you. So you have that going on. And basically, when Kevin comes in, by the way, Kevin did not have it. The only facts Kevin had was the fact that those two were dead. If you remember from the last episode, Kanjay, the hitter from the Stompers crew, killed the two young soldiers for selling drugs in Mexican territory. When Jerome previously had told them don't sell drugs in the Mexican territory. So even with the fact that Jerome told them, I told y'all not to deal drugs in Mexican territory, when Kevin brings up castration and starts saying they were lynched, which wasn't true, by the way, then that sends like Louis, Jerome, Leon, they get guns, knives, they strap up and leave the house, going back to where D. Ray and Victor were killed. Wanda is in a panic. Louis is trying to keep things calm, but she can't. Jerome says this is man shit, and she kind of agrees. Once they leave, she tells Wanda this is man shit, and immediately Louis is going to get Franklin. This scene was it was strange because you have Jerome again. This is where a lack of leadership came into play. There was no one, the theme was, a couple of themes in this episode that I brought up earlier, the thinker and the prover. There was no thinker in this scene, with the exception of Louis. We'll talk about that. But there was no rational, there was no pragmatic, or there was no rationality basically from anyone in this scene. Everybody was just basically all over the place, and that will cause for some bad decisions, which almost transpired. Gustavo and Donna Rosa, of course, is a psychic. Gustavo goes to her. Gustavo, of course, is very concerned, of course, about Pedro returning, Soledad. The psychic basically tells Gustavo that Lucia has darkness around her, and that some of the darkness has, some of the bad things have yet to reveal themselves. She sees Pedro as not really a threat, but the fact is that she says that Pedro hates him and hates Lucille as well, which kind of makes him a threat with that being the case. And mostly, again, the big thing is she says that the darkness has yet to reveal itself. So Gustavo again is very nervous very concerned about the fact that Pedro is back. He doesn't like the fact that Pedro is back, and Soledad is back. So they're both, he's on edge about that. So he goes to the psychic, and the psychic again basically says that again Lucille has darkness all around her, and basically the psychic basically said Lucille is trouble. In essence, what the psychic was trying to tell him, that as long as you're around this girl, that you are going to be in danger. Franklin, Jerome, Kevin, and Leon. This, of course, is the fall. This, of course, is right there in the car. So before Franklin gets to him, there's no gang members around. It's like 12 o'clock. It's early. Even Jerome says, I haven't been out the house before 12 o'clock, and I don't know, God knows when. So it might have even been earlier than 12. This could have even been in the morning. And Kevin is such in a rage that he's ready to shoot anybody, like about gang member, just a regular citizen, which of course it would have been insane. And even Leon checks him saying, my nigga, was you going to just shoot some kids and some kids and old folks? So then, as he says, Kevin basically tells him, let me out the car. Leon says no. And then you hear a knock. And then of course it's Franklin saying, y'all stupid motherfuckers, wrap this up. And you see Franklin basically just, basically whipped him a new one, discussing why they were in that territory. They had, and you see Franklin going at it with Jerome, saying that, I thought we told them to stay away from Pico when they found out that it was Delroy and Victor. So I thought that we told them to stay away from there. And Jerome, they said, yeah, that's what we told him. So and this is the quote, to me, the quote of the episode. When we tell someone to do some shit, we're supposed to make sure they do it. That was from Franklin. So right now, again, Franklin's organization is just not solid right now. They're, they have a bunch of young guys that really don't know what they're doing. He is the leader, but he's not the leader as far. He is not. He's not the end all be all leader. Like, he's the point person for Teddy. He's the one making moves telling them in terms of where to go as far as the cookhouse. But they're still he doesn't have that iron fist as of yet from that standpoint. And it gets to, he gets to a point where at this point, again, he is the leader, but not the undisputed leader from that standpoint. And again, this is where, having a solid number two, a clear cut, this is where, a Chris Paltrow or a Stringer Bell come in handy as a clear cut number two to kind of stabilize things when the number one is not around, or your number one is taking care of something else. And at this point, they don't have a clear cut. They did not have a clear cut number two, because Leon at this point hadn't reached, is not to the latter part of the episode where Leon reaches that point of basically saying, if Leon, with the mindset that he had in an episode, would have even gotten that car and would have shut it all down. So again, Franklin stops them, tells them to wrap it up as they go home. And of course, we know that it was Louie doing the only thing that she only could the thing that she could only do, and that was to call Franklin and get them up out of that territory. No one really was dead set on killing anybody but Kevin. They all had doubts. They were, Jerome and Leon, once they calmed down and got in the car, they got there and got to the Pico Union, the place where, again, Victor and Del and D-Ray were killed. They were not going to kill anybody. It was going to be Kevin that was the one that was out of control and that was emotional. That was going to do something. If anybody was going to do something. Lucia and Franklin, so they finally meet. In terms of from a business standpoint, Lucille, of course, Franklin still wants to know who killed his two soldiers. Lucille tells him the guy who killed him, Conchoy, is basically untouchable. Like if you kill him, then you have the whole basically everybody. She said all the Batos will be on you, and that you're basically dead if you kill him. At this point, Franklin does not have enough muscle or they're not organized enough to be fighting a war against a gang, against Stomper's gang. They would get destroyed. So she tells him that, and she also tries to make a deal with him in the process. He holds off on the deal. Basically says, "Hey, I need more time." He tells her, "Listen, I can't make a deal with you. How do I tell my people is that I'm gonna make a deal with you based on what just transpired with them, with two of my soldiers being killed?" And she says something that is very important, that this was all business. Tell your people this was business. Even Contra killing the soldiers was business. And we're all in this. Basically, this is the business that she basically hit him with the Godfather 2 Hyman Roth shit. This is the business that we chose, and you can't operate on emotion. You have to operate. You have to operate like shit is strictly business. So she's coming out with that angle. He holds off on making a deal with her, and then he goes and lies to Kevin about the fact of knowing, doesn't tell Kevin, of course, the conversation they had and all the information that he got from her, and says that, basically tells Kevin that she does not know who did it, and she still has to look around, which we know is not true. But Kevin would have started a war had he been told the truth by Franklin. So this is the beginning of the Lucia and Franklin exchange and connection that will go through this entire second season. Definitely more to come with them meeting and with them being connected. MVP Matt and Louie. Matt, first of all, saved his own life as well as Teddy's life, and Louie saved everybody in essence. When Kevin gets out, shoots somebody, shoots and kills somebody, then it's a wrap for the Franklin State organization. Because that would have been it. So those two characters were without question the MVPs. Matt even checked Teddy on the plane, during one of the drops, basically saying, "You called me, and we would have. If it wasn't for me, we'd be dead." And he made great points to which Teddy basically had really couldn't combat because he did call Matt and he needed Matt. And Matt basically said, "I'm not just Matt basically says, listen, I'm not just here to fly a plane. Like you basically forced my hand in terms of some of the stuff that had to be done." And of course, Louis was clearly the most level-headed out of all with minus Franklin, out of Kevin and Jerome and Leon. She's the one, and that's something that very much you should pay attention to if you haven't seen the entire series about Louis and how she thinks. Her being, again, she could have been listed as a thinker as well in this episode. So Matt and Louis are clearly the MVPs. That's going to wrap it up for this latest edition of the Real Deal Podcast. I will be back, of course, in a couple of days with the season 16 premiere of the Real Deal Podcast, where we talk Week 1 NFL action. Of course, we will return next weekend with season 2, episode 4 of the hit series Snowfall. Have a great rest of the evening. So long.